We'll be praying for every single person involved in this. Absolutely. We're going to band together as a community.
We all feel the loss, and I just prayers. Everyone pray for these children and their parents. They need it.
It is unreal. It's a sad day here in Freeman for many parents and students.
Tonight we have team coverage of the school shooting from all across the Inland Northwest. We'll bring you the latest from the victims still in the hospital tonight, as well as the suspect, also Tom Sherry and Whitney Ward in the studio. Good evening, everyone. I'm Jane McCarthy.
And I'm Mark Handerhan. We are live outside of Freeman High School at this hour. It is a much different scene than it was earlier today, starting at around 10:15.
That's when parents were streaming to this school after hearing news of the shooting. Tonight, only investigators remain inside the school, but it is a day that began with gunfire. So we want to recap what we know.
At around 10:15, deputies say the shooter walked into the school. They say he had two guns. Investigators say the first gun he had appears to have jammed or malfunctioned, and at that point he pulled out another gun. At around that time, deputies say another student confronted the suspect and tried to stop him. The gunman, deputies say, shot and killed that student. He then continued shooting, firing and hitting at three more students. Those three victims were rushed to Sacred Heart in Spokane, and if there is any good news in any of this, it's that those three victims are expected to survive. As for how the gunman was stopped, it's not exactly clear, but authorities say it appears a school janitor played a role in either convincing the suspect to surrender or even took him down. That suspect now in juvenile custody tonight. Authorities say he is to blame for killing one person and wounding three others.
And one of the most heart-wrenching stories we heard today was from a brave young woman who was in the hallway when that shooting took place, and her classmates to her left and to her right were shot. Take a listen. How did this unfold for you?
Well, I had gotten to school, and I have a locker on the freshman floor, on the second floor, and I was doing my locker and I was about to put my things away, and I just heard a loud pop. And I just looked behind me, and the shooter, he was just walking down the hall very calmly, had a very passive face, and he was just had his pistol, and he was shooting, and he shot one boy, and then he shot the ceiling, or in whatever order that goes. And I just remember I crouched down, and the girl next to me, she fell, and I just could hear her screaming and screaming and screaming, and I kind of came to, and the hallway was empty, and except for the girl next to me, and it was very dusty because he shot the ceiling, and she had been shot in the back, and I looked to my left, and there's a boy, he had been shot, and on the other side of the hall I saw there's another boy on the other side of the hall, and he had been shot as well, and I looked at it and I could just see the pistol, it was several feet away from me. And
you mentioned, Elisa, that one of the victims, you actually grabbed her hand and prayed with her?
Yes, I didn't know if it was a fatal wound or not, but I didn't know she had been shot, and so I kind of grabbed her hand, and she was trying to calm me down as well because I was very scared that it was fatal, and I kind of praying and trying to just figure things out, and one of the teachers came, and he helped helped her with the wound and everything, and when the paramedics came, and my health teacher just directed me to another classroom.
Now, you saw the shooter. Do you know how he was taken down? Did you see that happen?
I was crouched down for a long time. I could hear him walk past me, and I just know that he walked in the hall, and I didn't see exactly what happened. I was very scared, but I'd heard from my classmates, and they kind of alluded to the idea that one of the janitors had kind of apprehended him. He had a pistol and a rifle, and he was kind of just throwing his guns as he went, and I don't know how it happened. I do know it was something to the idea that the janitor, I kind of helped with that.
Joe, as a father, obviously this is a situation that when you have a student in school, you hope never happens. I just wonder what your thoughts are today.
I was absolutely horrified when I received a phone call from my sister. I hadn't even been notified that a shooting had taken place, and so I didn't know the state of. I have two daughters. They're one in middle school, and of course Elisa's a freshman in the high school. So, as a parent, the worst things run through your mind. But I was grateful several minutes later to receive a phone call from Elisa that she was okay, but under lockdown. So we just came out here immediately.
And to hear that she was so close to the gunman must just be unreal.
It is unreal. It's a sad day here in Freeman for many parents and students. There's not a lot to say. It's been very unfortunate.
Yeah.
So Elisa, you saw more than anyone should ever see today, and we're sure sorry that happened. The law enforcement portion of that, you had to speak with them as well before you got out of school.
Yes, there were quite a few witnesses because there was a lot of people in the hall at the time who saw what was happening, and they had us all go, and then they interviewed us, and they just asked us questions about what we saw, and then we were permitted to leave.
Now, we're not identifying the shooter as of yet, but you know him.
Yes, I was acquaintances with him. I didn't know him personally, but I was in a play with him, and I was in elementary school, and he was rather outgoing. He won an award for being an actor, I think, in the previous year. He did not seem like the kind of kid to do it, from my understanding. I didn't know him personally, but...
Does anybody know why?
I'm not sure. I don't know if he was bullied or not, but no, but I think I've heard some of my classmates say that on his Instagram account he alluded to the idea that things were going to change or something to that matter.
And that was Elisa and her father you just heard from. One thing we discussed, Jane and I, earlier was just how much composure that young girl had during just terrible circumstances. She mentioned reaching down and praying with one of the victims who she said was shot in the back. Tonight, that victim along with two more are in the hospital.
That's right. KREM 2's Ryan Sims has spent the day at Sacred Heart Medical Center. He now has the latest tonight from doctors. Ryan?
Yeah, guys, after such a chaotic, sad, emotional day, I got to say that Sacred Heart is calm tonight. The three victims in this case, we are told, are in satisfactory condition. It has been that way for much of the day today. That is even more remarkable when you consider that one of them did have major surgery earlier this afternoon. But again, the good news is that they are ending this awful, awful day in satisfactory condition. As for getting them here, Sacred Heart says that this is precisely what they trained for in so many of those drills. They say that at one point, at really the height of the trauma today, they had 8 different beds and 8 different rooms prepared for as many victims as possible. Now, thank God it didn't get to that point, but still, they say that they were very prepared for today's trauma and for the incoming of patients today. Beyond that, in terms of other preparedness, we are told that they were also remarkably prepared for the family members here. In fact, there were security guards really throughout this facility ready to whisk those family members into the building as soon as they arrived. There was no hassling over where to park, no hassle over where to, go to which floor to attend here in Sacred Heart. As soon as they got here, they went right into the building. Sacred Heart also tells me that that is all part of their program to make that process as easy as possible for the people who need it the most, the family members of the victims. Again, the victims here at Sacred Heart ending the night in satisfactory condition. We will keep tabs on their condition all evening long and have the latest on the KREM 2 Morning News, as well as Twitter, Facebook, and KREM.com. Reporting live from Sacred Heart tonight, Ryan Sims, KREM 2 News.
All right, Ryan, thank you. It is terrible what occurred here at Freeman High School today, but when you consider all of the students that were in that area when those shots rang out, the situation could have easily been much worse.
Unfortunately, we have 3 students who are on their way to recovery. That's the latest for now out here at Freeman High School. We'll have more in just a bit, but we're going to send it back to the studio now.
All right, thank you, Mark. Jane, tonight we are also learning more about the suspect himself. We want to let you know right off the bat, we have only named him once this afternoon, and that was intentional.
Yeah, we can tell you that he is a young male student at Freeman, but we are choosing to focus instead on the heroes in this story and the victims.
Yeah, and their names, and that is why we're not showing that suspect's face here right now. We want to be very clear, this is not about protecting that student's identity, that suspect's identity. Instead, it is because this suspect has not been charged yet, and we usually do not show a juvenile suspect's face until they've been charged as an adult. And you're looking at him right now just a few hours ago as he was being escorted into the Spokane County Juvenile Detention Center. We know that he will face a judge on Thursday, and we will be there.
In the meantime, we are learning more about the suspected shooter. For that, we want to get straight to Alex Rozier, who is live outside the juvenile jail downtown.
Tom and Whitney, good evening. Yeah, he is right behind me tonight, staying at the Juvenile Detention Center. We were here for several hours as investigators interviewed him behind closed doors at the courthouse next door. They then walked him over about 100 yards, a police escort on both sides, and walked him right into juvenile detention. I want to show you a picture of that as he was walking in. Here's a still photo of him with his back to us as he was walking in, escorted by 2 Spokane County detectives. We did ask several questions. As he was being escorted by police, he remained emotionless. He didn't answer a single one of them. So the next question is, what is next for this boy? Court staff tells me if he remains at juvenile detention, he'll likely appear tomorrow early afternoon for his first court appearance. There is the possibility, however, given the severity of this crime, that he may be moved to adult court. We don't have a lot of information about the suspected shooter. He was very quiet, reserved, friends tell us. And as evidenced by his actions today, it is very clear that he had very serious problems. But I do want to tell you that it was earlier today, about 6 hours ago now, when I was walking inside the Juvenile Detention Center in the doors behind me for the very first time. I went to talk to courtroom staff about that court appearance tomorrow. And as I was there, by chance, his parents, the suspected shooter's parents, were there trying to meet their son for the first time and speak with him for the first time since the incident this morning. I will say that they spoke with me briefly. They did ask that their privacy be respected during this time. They are devastated, shocked, and saddened. Like so many people, the rest of this community, I do know several people who are very close with this family, and they say that his parents are good people. And tonight they are now dealing with a reality that their son, if convicted, may spend the rest of his life in prison. Reporting live, I'm Alex Rozier, KREM 2 News.
Just heartbreaking, Alex. Thank you very much. All day long, we have been here trying to bring you the latest information, gathering details from everywhere that we can to bring you those updates just on what has become a terrible story. So many of our colleagues, fellow reporters and photographers also out there in the field trying to do the same from the very beginning. Yeah,
KREM 2's Amanda Rowley tells us about some of the incredible stories that we heard today.
We were here this morning and watched as parents anxiously waited for any information, any word on the safety of their student. Eventually, parents were able to head to the football field, and they started trickling down this way as they brought their students with them to head home. We spoke with many of those students and their families, and they described to me what they saw and heard on this tragic day.
Officer Nye was pointing to leave, go that way, and running in with his gun.
I just heard a couple gunshots, and it was kind of like a freak out, adrenaline rush. So.
What did you think they were gunshots at first?
No, I thought it was like a bag popping or something like that.
Oh, this is shocking. I would have never expected this at Freeman. We got here and we booked it. Just hope everyone's all right.
My friend that did this was trying to make friends with everybody, and he was doing really good about it, and he just never seemed like the person to do this. I did kind of have an idea from everything that he was handing out and stuff, because he was handing out notes to his friends, and I read them and said that he's going to do something stupid to where either he gets killed or put in jail.
All three of them are all really great girls. They're all caring, and they care about everyone. And they're one was on varsity volleyball, and one of them was on JV, and they're both amazing girls. And so is the other one, and I hate to see that they're hurt.
I'm still in shock. I'm just devastated. All these parents just come rushing, and we've just been waiting so long to get our kids back, and I'm just squeezing them extra tight tonight.
That mother you just heard from echoes what many other parents told us today. They are holding their children very close tonight, grateful for their safety. In Freeman, Amanda Rowley, KREM 2 News.
We were on the air all day covering this story, and I have to tell you, the way these kids came together during this incredibly scary and dangerous situation has just been amazing to see.
Yeah, some of them so composed, so poised, able to describe just the horror that was unfolding all around them, as close as you and I are, watching their friends get shot. It's been pretty incredible, and we know that they have a really difficult road to recovery as this healing process just now getting started. That is kind of where these vigils came in this evening. Several places holding those candlelight vigils tonight for the victims and for the greater Freeman community. We want to send things back now to Jane and Mark as they are out there outside talking about those vigils tonight.
Whitney, good evening. That was a common thing we heard throughout the day when speaking with students and staff and just community members. They wanted to get together and support each other through this. And as Whitney mentioned, they did so tonight through several vigils in the area.
They did get together. For starters, people packed the atrium at River Park Square. They came together and held a moment of silence. Also, the Valley Real Life Church opened its doors for the community to come together. And the small Fairfield Community Church, just south of the school, also brought people together tonight. KREM 2's Alexa Block is here now. And Alexa, you spoke with the pastor at that church.
I did. Now, the Fairfield Community Church is a very small church, and it's a very small community about 10 miles south of Freeman High School here. And this tragedy hits very close for those people who live there. Locals got together tonight at the Fairfield Community Church to just be together. They packed into the small church and sang. They prayed, and they just embraced one another. Some of the people who attend that church know students and parents and others who are connected to the school because they are so close. So it's a very sensitive time right now for them. Pastor Paul Anderson said he wanted to give people a chance to reflect on what happened and pray for those who are hurting right now.
Well, I heard what had happened early this morning, and after I'd heard that and thought about it and been praying for all of us and with all of us, I thought we need a place to gather and to be one with another in a time like this. And it's so important that we have each other during these times. Everyone is probably got something to say after this and some emotions so it's important for us to be there and to pray with and walk beside and I think sometimes just to be with.
Now, just to reiterate, Pastor Anderson just is really encouraging people to come together right now. He says that's so important.
Yes, Alexa, thank you very much. It is important that people are opening their doors for places for people to gather. Also, River Park Square tonight opened its doors and people gathered and held a moment of silence there.
That's right. KREM 2's Laura Papetti was actually involved in organizing that vigil tonight, and she has more on how the victims were honored there tonight.
People walked into River Park Square tonight for the candlelight vigil that started at 7 o'clock. People were visibly shaken. It had been a very long day. People were tired. They were confused. Parents had been so scared. This morning when they got the news, students had been through a crisis that's almost unimaginable. So when they arrived here today, there was so much visible fear and confusion, and then by the time that it ended tonight, people were talking and coming together and taking a few minutes to enjoy each other's company, and that really was the purpose of tonight's vigil. Number one was to show the community of Freeman that people are here. They will be here for the long haul. This is a long recovery process. And it was also a chance for people. We had so many people from the Freeman community come here tonight. They said they needed a place just to be and to think about those and themselves who had been through this crisis today. And we had a pastor here who came from Mosaic Fellowship, a church in town. They came and spoke about enjoying the time that you have and being grateful for being with family and friends, and to take that time to hug the person next to you and to go home and hug your kids. And be grateful for the fact that you have the chance and the opportunity to do that tonight. He also spoke about those who've been so impacted by this shooting today, both by the student that was killed and also the students that are in the hospital this evening, and took some time for a moment of silence, and people chose to say a prayer for those impacted by today's shooting at Freeman High School. A couple hundred people gathered tonight for the vigil. They only had a few hours notice, and so it was really, I think, a sign that it was so important to have a place for people to come. And we are grateful to all of those who were able to make it down here to River Park Square. I should mention we're grateful to River Park Square for allowing the crowd in tonight and the community to come together to start this healing process, which again is going to be a very long and slow process. So things did wrap up. It was about a half-hour vigil, and then people again spending some time this evening to talk and to be together. We know over the coming days and weeks there will likely be many gatherings, and many opportunities for people to come together, and we will certainly keep you updated right here on KREM 2, and of course always on KREM.com and our social media platforms. Reporting in Spokane, Laura Papetti, KREM 2 News.
All right, we can't stress it enough from people out here just saying it's important to support each other in these difficult times. Folks did that as well at the Valley Real Life Church tonight.
KREM 2's Dana Marie McNichol has more on that gathering now.
Tonight, the Valley Real Life Church gathered as a community to mourn, pray, and love one another in their worship vigil for their Freeman community.
I see the stars.
They prayed for students, teachers, first responders, and their community as they move forward through this tragedy.
Those that are hands-on, trying to pick up the pieces. Because we know that God's word is unfailing and that he is close to those who are hurting. And he's certainly close to those in Freeman tonight.
Their ministry is there for support and trained to deal with crisis, providing resources during this grieving process.
We have a grief share program that's just currently getting started up. We also have many students we know of, in our church family that have been, and families that have been affected by this tragedy, and our high school ministry, and many places for them to connect and be supported and walk alongside each other.
Tonight, this community is focused on spreading the message of love, and they're focused on the healing process to come. Reporting from the Valley Real Life Church, Dana Marie McNichol, KREM 2 News.
Also important to point out, beyond just the people immediately impacted by this event here today at Freeman High School, a lot of folks on social media talking about what occurred here today.
Yeah, people just want to connect in the face of this. For more on that, we're going to send it back to the studio now.
All right, thanks, guys. Yeah, there's a Freeman alum that we want to let you know about. Look at that. She's showing her support for the victims in Freeman tonight. Melanie Larson put this on a hay bale. It's a Letterman jacket from Freeman with a heart there in the background. One of many just really powerful gestures that we have seen across the area. People just wanting to let the entire community know that they're there. This is a show of solidarity, that they'll do whatever is needed, that this community has a real ability to rise to the challenge.
Boy, I'll say. Matter of fact, in this tragedy, we're continuing to see just how much support the community of Freeman has.
Yeah, hundreds and hundreds of people, not just here in the Inland Northwest, but across the country, even around the world, now using the hashtags Freeman Strong and Freeman HS. So it just shows how much support this community has tonight. Much of it coming from places that they just didn't even realize were out there. Out of all of the powerful images that we have seen today, these are just a few of the most powerful images.
Yeah, this really tugs at parents' hearts tonight. Trooper Jeff Senevi with the Washington State Patrol tweeted today, "Worst day of my life, of my law enforcement career, to respond to your own kid's school for active shooter. Prayers for everyone involved."
Yeah, almost immediately after the shooting, this sign popped up along with many others reading, Freeman Strong. And that, of course, is now the hashtag that is trending all around the world as people are just showing their support for this community. This next image, this is one that started it all early this morning from a junior at Freeman High School. These are students huddled right there in an elementary school classroom. They had evacuated. They ran away as soon as they heard the gunshots in the high school. They ran across over to the elementary school. They were just waiting there in that classroom, waiting for police to let them know that it was safe and that they could go outside again. They didn't know at this moment, they didn't know exactly what was happening.
Very
they had
scary.
just, they had known that there were gunshots and that they needed to get away, that it was very, very dangerous.
Yeah, and this tweet now comes from the city of Marysville. If any city can relate to what the city of Freeman is going through, it's them tonight. You remember back in 2014, a student killed 4 of his classmates in Marysville, Washington, and it shows Freeman has the support of people all over the state and far beyond.
Yeah, and just outside of the screen, you couldn't really see it there, but there's another heart there over Freeman. And this love, this support, it stretches across all distances, again, showing how people will rise to the occasion and face this challenge head on. Now, one of the big questions tonight that we have seen a lot of people asking this question is, of course, how these students and family can best move forward from all of this. Former State Representative Kevin Parker has a pretty unique perspective on that because he is a survivor of another school shooting. For more on that, we're turning back to Mark Hanrahan and Jane McCarthy and their interview today with Kevin Parker. Guys?
Yeah, Whitney, good evening. Few people know what it's like to experience a school shooting like what occurred here today. Kevin Parker does know what that's like.
That's right. Kevin Parker was actually a Young Life leader when the Columbine shooting happened. He happened to be inside Columbine High School in the lunchroom talking with a student when those shots rang out. So he definitely does have a unique perspective. Take a listen. Anything else you want people to know tonight?
Well, I was just encouraged. It's easy for us to put the attention on the shooter when I think it's better to keep the attention on the victims. And shooters crave media attention all across the country. And when across the country, other potential shooters are watching what's happening in Spokane and they're wondering, is that shooter getting attention and will I get that attention? And so I'm always an advocate for the less we can mention their name, the better for everyone, the better for America, actually.
And we know this community is good at wrapping their arms around one another for sure.
Yeah, I was just going to say one thing that Sheriff Knezevich kind of touched on that stuck with me from when we interviewed him earlier. He's like, we have got to find out a way as a society to get our youth to stop resorting to violence when they have these issues come up. And I'm just curious, you were a representative. Do you have any thoughts on that matter at all?
It's a complex question that I don't think anyone has solved in 20 years. The reality is school shootings have been part of our culture going back to the late 1700s. So there it was more stabbings. And we've had this history of every decade there's a really ugly incident that comes in. There was a really ugly one in Ohio. There's one in Germany in the 50s. But you're right. I mean, a lot of this I always felt these were mental health issues. We tend to look at the Band-Aid, but we don't always look at the depth. I really appreciate your question. And so how do we not look at the branches, but how do we look at the roots? And I think a lot of those roots there's a lot going on. Mental illness is higher than it's ever been. And the more we can advocate and remove the stigma of, sometimes it's good to check in with a counselor, sometimes it's good just to make sure you're healthy and processing and things are progressing the way that they should. And so I think that it's multifaceted. There are a lot of different reasons. I think community is a huge portion of this. And again, the best thing Freeman students have and parents are this community. I can't advocate that enough. I think the other is mental illness. I think the third are relationships that they have with school teachers. I mean, teachers, think about how amazing they are these days. I mean, when they come back, they will be different too, and they will be scared. And they did not pursue education to protect kids. They pursued education to teach kids. And now it's an age where sometimes they are called to protect kids too. And we saw that at Sandy Hook. And teachers are kind of these heroes in waiting where they will step up if they need to. And we've done a lot of the prevention work with the police, with the fire. And I think today was an example of that. They did an amazing job and lives were saved because of them. And life was saved because a lot of lives were saved because of that student who sacrificed their life for everyone else. But all that being said, it's very complex, and I know people are still researching the heck out of this thing. And it is interesting, though. It's not as prevalent in the Midwest as it is out here in other parts, and we have to start asking, why is that?
Kevin Parker also talked to us about how strongly he feels about students coming together to talk about this. So he is helping to foster that for the entire Freeman community. He is hosting a free event tomorrow at 9 a.m. He's teaming up with Chap's Restaurant, and Kevin Parker is also the owner of several Dutch Bros coffee stands.
Yeah, that starts. They're hosting that free event tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning. All Freeman students, parents, and staff are invited to come down and just talk about what happened. All the food, they say, is free. And just speaking with Kevin Parker today, you really get the sense that he cares about these students and this community because he's been there. He's gone through it. And he even mentioned to us, if someone wants to reach out to them, he would be more than willing to speak with them about what happened.
He definitely has some great advice, for sure.
All right. We'll send it back to you, Whitney and Tom.
All right, thanks, guys. We want to let you know just a little bit about some of the reaction and response that we've been seeing across the board. All day, lawmakers from across the state and really across the country have been responding on social media. So let's take a look. Betsy DeVos, obviously the Secretary of Education, says she's devastated to hear about the shooting, praying for the victims, their loved ones, and the entire community. Just one of many tweets that we have been seeing, including this one from Senator Maria Cantwell saying she's closely monitoring just the devastating news and that her heart is with the Spokane community. Obviously, our political leaders have been responding in lots of ways. We also heard from Kathy McMorris Rogers. She was saying that it was just awful, and that, again, here's Senator Patty Murray also calling it heartbreaking, saying her thoughts are with the students, the teachers, the parents, everyone just agreeing that as we continue to get more details, that their hearts are just going out to everyone who's affected. Same goes for the Governor Jay Inslee, saying that all Washingtonians thinking of those victims as well as their families.
Yeah, and you can see that there's lots of stuff going on, support from other schools here in the Spokane area. This is an elementary school. Brentwood staff says they're going to be wearing blue at Brentwood Elementary School tomorrow for Freeman, so Freeman Blue. So you can see that, and there's more than that going on. There are many, many other schools here in the Spokane area that are planning on doing something to show support for the Freeman Scotties. And we also had support from Gonzaga University. The president of Gonzaga University also tweeting out support and prayers, and also the Catholic Bishop of Spokane sending out prayers for Freeman and the family.
Yeah, everyone just doing whatever they can, knowing that there is a very tough road ahead for a lot of these kids, whether they were in that immediate aftermath or just heard the gunshots and felt the fear of being in real danger. It's going to affect a lot of students for a long time to come. We want to send it back now out to Jane and Mark there outside of Freeman High School, talking about this healing process that now has to begin.
Yeah, Whitney, time about 11:31, more than 13 hours ago was when that gunman opened fire here at Freeman High School, killing one student, injuring 3 more. To say it's been a difficult day is certainly an understatement.
It's definitely hard to find the words to do justice to the emotion that was here today. We want to thank all the people that graciously spoke with us today and shared their thoughts. And let's take one last listen.
Oh, this is shocking. Like, I would have never expected this at Freeman. Yeah, we got here and we booked it. Like, just hope everyone's all right.
I heard a loud pop, and I turned around and I saw him, and he was just going, and he was completely passive, and he was just shooting, and he shot one young man, and then I crouched down onto the floor, and I'm pretty sure he shot the ceiling, and then he shot the girl next to me, and she fell down, and as everyone was running, I could just hear her screaming, "Help me," and she was screaming, help me," over and over, and I just stayed down, and like maybe a minute or so passed, and I looked back up and the hallway was empty, and my legs were all dusty from where he shot the ceiling, and the girl next to me, she was bleeding. She'd been shot in the back, and I looked to my left, and there was the boy he had shot. I looked to my right, and there down the hall there was another boy, someone I assumed that was shot, and a little while away next to class, and I could see the pistol that he'd used, and it was very scary, very surreal, and I couldn't believe what was happening. I thought, well, not my school, surely. It was.
We were in the training room, and we were just like hiding in there, and the lockdown was going on for like a really long time, and then we started so then me and my other friends got into a group chat and started talking about it, and then we found out that there was a shooter, and we just started freaking out, and then someone opened the door, and we didn't know who it was, but then they just closed the door and then just left, and then like 20 minutes went by, and then like cops came in and took us to the elementary. And
I heard the gunshot, and I did kind of do like one of those fast looks, and I did see my friend with a duffel bag, but he came to school and to like sell games and stuff, so I just thought it was that. And then I heard the gunshot and saw people running and screaming on the top hallway, so.
When all of this news started to emerge on social media, the prevalent hashtag was Freeman shooting. That tide did change later today, where the hashtag reigned, Freeman Strong.
Appropriate for sure. We also spoke with Spokane County Sheriff Ozzie Knezevich. One last thought from him tonight. Parents, hug your kids tonight.
Reporting from Freeman High School, thanks for joining us. I'm Jane McCarthy alongside Mark Hanrahan. Have a good night.